Napoleon united France around himself through support of the Napoleonic Code. He did this by keeping many ideals of the Revolution. The Napoleonic Code is important in the history of both France and her colonies. Before Napoleon, French law was long, complicated, and arbitrary. Implementation of law often depended on one's social status and what province one was in. Prior to the Napoleonic Code, most laws were based on local customs. The North followed Middle Age customs, and Roman law flourished in the South. Over 400 different legal codes were in place. Many French were unhappy with the legal system, and during the Revolution, Jacques Roger de Cambacérès attempted to put a new legal system into place. However, the National Convention had bigger concerns, and a new code was largely overlooked. The Napoleonic Code was based not on French law, but on Justinian's 6th century Roman law, the Corpus Juris Civilis, and within it, the Institutes. The Institutes divided law into three areas: persons, things, and actions. And the Napoleonic Code divided law into four areas: persons, property, acquisition of property, and the civil procedure. The ideals of the Revolution called for equality for all, and the French people longed for a legal system that met that desire. The Napoleonic Code was unique in that it provided for equality in the eyes of the law for all people.
It's important to realize how far the legal system has come. If you had a dealing with the law, it was dealing with the church, the king, or some noble, or a combination of the three. So if you're a peasant and you're accused of something, how are the nobles going to rule? Guilty? It's not even a question. So what the Napoleonic Code said was, hey, you're going to be an equal. You're cool, we like you all the same.
The Napoleonic Code also removed all aristocratic privileges, secured the right of attorney for the accused, and called for the eradication of feudalism, as well as the separation of church and state. Napoleon believed the new legal system should be based on common sense and equality.
The Napoleonic Code was extremely important in uniting the peasants around Napoleon, but it didn't only appeal to the peasants and revolutionaries. It was somewhat authoritarian and conservative. Married women had almost no legal standing, and this influenced France for a very long time. Divorces were extremely limited, but despite all this, it was still progressive for its time. Here we are in 1801, and all legal barriers for the peasantry are removed. You had the right to counsel if you were charged with a crime. England didn't do this until almost 40 years later in 1836. So the Napoleonic Code did an excellent job of making almost everyone happy. It was really a mixture of old and new, a mixed conservatism and revolutionary ideals.
The Napoleonic Code kept a lot of the revolutionary ideals in place. It secured property gains the peasants made. It kept constitutionalism by codifying the law. But most importantly, it treated almost everyone equally. Equality was really strong. So the common French person saw Napoleon as maintaining the revolution, and he was able to draw immense support from this.
The church found a lot of its influence go down with the Napoleonic Code. Although Napoleon worked hard to keep relations with the church strong, the code was really a blow to the church's power. It transitioned from a system where religion was the ultimate source of law to the church having almost no say. However, there were several parts that made the church happy. For instance, pre-celibacy was now made mandatory. So the church was not happy with Napoleon's overall code, but Napoleon was able to smooth things over with the implementation of the Concordat.
The Napoleonic Code was super awesome. It went really far in making France's legal system more progressive. It allowed juries to try criminal cases. That's really cool. It even set special courts up for the accused that could possibly intimidate jurors. The Napoleonic Code obviously follows the most important ideal of the Revolution, equality.
The code did not neglect property, another important ideal of the Revolution. It secured property gains made during the Revolution and codified the buying and selling of property, in addition to looking at the law in property disputes. The right of the people to be secure in their property was absolutely secure. property was defined as anything immovable. One interesting property requirement was that upon the owner's death, it had to be divided equally among the owner's children. The long-standing tradition of giving only to the firstborn male had fallen. However, this did only apply to legitimate children, and as the code sought to maintain strict moral standards. Napoleon once said, "Women are nothing but machines for producing children." It's obvious Napoleon did not have the most progressive views towards women, and the Napoleonic Code echoed this, as it was very restrictive towards women. The father and husband still had total control over a woman. A woman could be jailed, fined, or even bankrupt for all acts of adultery, in addition to being divorced. Men could only be divorced if the adultery took place in the marital home with no other major consequence. Divorce was sticky under the Napoleonic Code and rare. In some circumstances, if a man was sentenced for a long time in prison, a woman could request divorce, but these requests were often denied. Even some rights gained by women during the Revolution were erased. For instance, spousal abuse was no longer considered a crime. Olympe de Gouges' ideas did, however, influence Napoleon and his code in a minor way. Napoleon, like Olympe de Gouges, believed marriage should be treated as a social contract, not as a transfer of property from father to husband. While women could not engage in commerce without permission of the husband, there was one rather interesting stipulation. Husbands who had free power to spend their wife's money and property had to keep an account. If asked, they had to give the account to their wife, and if she found the money was being spent unwisely, she could petition to take control of it. These petitions were almost never granted, and this was more of a modicum right gained by women. If divorce was granted, it was, however, surprisingly progressive. Although men had almost carte blanche control of property and finance, during a divorce, each party was viewed as having an equal claim to the property. The Napoleonic Code was the first to implement the everybody gets half divorce system.
It's important to look at how the Napoleonic Code influenced women. Obviously, it gave them almost no rights. This was actually an important ideal of the revolution. It's crucial to note the revolutionaries called for limited women's rights, and that's what Napoleon gave them.
The Napoleonic Code sought to define everything and make almost everything fair. For instance, stabbing someone gets a lesser punishment than poisoning someone, because poisoning was seen as more premeditated. The Napoleonic Code has continued to influence the legal system worldwide. The Napoleonic Code, or small variants, are in place in about 150 countries. The Civil Code is the child of the Napoleonic Code, and is contrasted by the common law system of England. Countries shown here in blue use civil law, or what is essentially the Napoleonic Code, while countries shown in red use English common law, and countries or states shown as brown use a mixture of the two systems, most notably the U.S. state of Louisiana, which because of its strong French influence uses a mixture of both English and French.
Well, the Napoleonic Code played a major role in history. During many of France's wars, when France would do something questionable, the opposition would often point to the Napoleonic Code and say, "Hey, what happened? I thought you were supposed to treat people with some amount of respect." It's been influential in tons of countries. For instance, Vietnam has an extremely progressive legal system. If you ask anyone in Southeast Asia who has the biggest legal system, they'll say Vietnam, because it's based on Napoleon.
The impact of the Napoleonic Code is both obvious and undeniable. The Napoleonic Code played a major role in securing Napoleon's power by maintaining the revolution and her ideals.